could stop thinking that Muslim women are oppressed, then that would be great.
Do you know anybody who's transgender and Muslim?
Do you know that we're being followed by the MI5, don't you? But I don't know if they're joking or not. It's like, oh yeah, if I whip off my hijab, like all these men are going to fall in love with me.
I was going to say, Jesus Christ, but then I was like, weird swear words to use.
There's a bomb going off, people want to know my opinion.
That's
I never
the
know
problem.
what to do with my eyes. You know, do I look
Just make them feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's good for them. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Stupid Questions with Leena, where we get to be stupid in public. So if you haven't watched the other episodes, here are some links to them. Basically the ethos of the series is I like to get people on who aren't me to tell me what it's like to be them. And I just need to get outside of my own head, basically. That's the idea of this whole thing. Stop Leena. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is why I just edit stuff out. Did I turn the mic on? So this is Aisha Malik. She wrote Sophia Khan is not obliged. But you're obliged, right? You're going to be obliged
do this, yes.
for the next 40 minutes.
Basically.
She's just decided she's going to be obliged. I've been going crazy on social media about this book. I've been obsessively tweeting. Yeah. It's probably borderline spam at this point.
I do actually love it.
This is the first episode where I've been asking you guys to send in some questions too. Ooh, Aisha, you're a Muslim?
Yes.
Would you call yourself a practicing Muslim? Is that a phrase I can use? You're like pre-practice.
The headscarf kind of says it all.
Some people would say they're like cultural Muslims, or they have and
I would.
Is that an okay question to ask? Already I'm like sweating.
No.
I'm like,
I can see.
You know,
don't worry.
we're not using the words real Muslim. That's not okay.
Are you like a proper
You're like
Muslim?
a proper, like you actually believe
yeah.
it. What is one of the most stupid questions you've been asked before? Because you know, if you say something then it's on my list, then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's stupid. Who would ask that?
I think I told you.
So maybe I should ask that first.
Yeah.
What would be?
I think I told you earlier that a girl once asked me whether I had to shower in my hijab.
Yeah. I'm just going to do like basics of Islam as well. The stuff that I genuinely like, oh, I feel like I know it, but if it came from the pub quiz, I would like maybe not risk a crate of beer on it.
The irony of being asked an Islamic question in a pub quiz is rather great, isn't it?
There's lots of sects of Islam, and there's 5 or 6.
There's more
like
than that. 72 or something. Okay. Yeah, over 70.
I was going to say Jesus Christ, but then I was like, weird swear word to use in village. Jesus Christ, so many types of Muslims. But there's 2 that are in the news a lot, which is Sunni and Shiites.
Yeah.
Is it okay to ask which one you are? Is that a nosy question? Should I ask other people that?
No, I mean, I identify as Sunni. But I think there are quite a lot of people, quite a lot of Muslims who try and just stay away from that argument by just calling themselves.
Yeah, because it's one of those things that's like, it's obviously a religious question, but it's a political question.
Yeah, and you know, I think it can perpetuate that hatred, and that's something that we're trying to work against, you know? Unite as one and all that. I guess if I were asked, I'd say Sunni, but I kind of prefer to stay away from that discussion.
Yeah, you're just like, no. With Sophia Khan, like it opens. One of the opening scenes is she's on the tube and somebody, she doesn't know, a man just calls her a terrorist, and she kind of like has a moment where she's like, what just happened? And he gets off the tube and then she leans out of the door and is like, terrorists don't wear vintage shoes, you wanker! Is that a direct quote? Did I do it?
Yeah.
Almost.
You ignorant wanker, but I think...
Ignorant. Close
almost.
enough. With the T word, has that ever happened to you? Has anybody in public said?
I was once called a terrorist, yeah.
By a stranger?
By a stranger who looked completely inoffensive.
Is it always the ones that look like you?
Yeah, tall, middle-aged guy with this rucksack and glasses, walking down Tooting of all places, by the way. I mean, Tooting.
You were like, did you turn around to be like, we're in Tooting? What are you doing?
There are a lot more people in Tooting who actually look a lot more terrorist-like than I do. It's like, come talk to them.
Like, I'm not, maybe he is though. So that's with strangers, but with people you know, does anybody turn to you and go, I saw something about terrorism on the news, what do you think?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think my, a lot of my non-Muslim friends are curious because they just know me as Aisha and their mate. So even though being a Muslim, it's quite visible that I'm Muslim, they don't identify me as that. Yeah. So when something like that happens, they want to know. They want to know my opinion, and they, and me and my colleagues certainly feel sorry for me every time there's a new bombing, and then you get all the kind of hatred spouted on the internet. So I get a lot of good support as well that way. Yeah.
And is there talk? in the Muslim community, is it talked about a lot? Are people discussing it as frequently, or is it something that's like we're all just like in a frenzy about it, and you guys are like, oh, it's really stupid.
Yeah, like I need to collect the kids.
I
need to cook today.
Or is it quite a flammable issue within?
It really depends. When something like Brussels happens, then obviously it becomes a point of conversation. But it kind of has to, because as a practicing Muslim, when it's visible that you're practicing, you do become targeted.
Yeah, it's because of the kind of visual aspect of it being
exactly, yeah. So you end up having to talk about it even if you don't want to. This whole burkini debate about M&S launching a burkini and the French minister saying how they're perpetuating oppression. Like, on one hand, I want to be really, really angry and livid about it and write something really kind of punchy.
Get something in the New Statesman with a really angry title.
And on the other hand, I'm like, oh God, I've got a second book to redraft. I don't have time for this.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like how much of the pie do you give to other people asking things of you? What really is going to rile you? I mean, this is just everyday, day-to-day stuff, and I think it's just common sense. When people say women should have a choice as to what they wear, obviously, I don't want to write something that's obvious, you know? It's so clear as day. I don't even want to enter that conversation, because if you don't know that, then I don't know what we're all doing here. Yeah, you've got other stuff to work on, mate. Yeah. Somebody recently challenged me to name the 5 pillars of Islam on the spot, and I absolutely panicked. Do you think that's something people should know? Because it's kind of a basic though, isn't it?
It's a basic, but only if you're Muslim, because if you're non-Muslim, then why would you need to know? But apparently knowledge is a good thing.
Yeah, so. I've heard about this knowledge thing. Let me see if we get this right.
Let me see if I get this right.
Pillars of Islam.
Yeah.
Oh, GCSE. Okay. Mecca. So going on a pilgrimage. Fasting.
Yes.
Charity. How much do you give to charity? Do you do that one?
Yeah,
There's that personal question.
I know. Every year after Ramadan, I sit down with my calculator and I'm like, right, how much do I have?
Because it's a specific number, isn't it? Because in Christianity, it's just like, just be nice, give your money away. But this is like a...
Yeah, so you have two different sorts of charity. You have zakat, which is obligatory, so you are obliged on a yearly basis to give 2.5% of what you own. And that will include an extra house if you have one, and money saved, and gold and silver.
Oh right, so it's like any kind of.
So you actually have to get out the calculator, and you have to properly work out how much you have and give 2.5% of that.
So people can't go, oh, I'm just going to invest all my money in housing and then I can get away. It's not like God's not the tax man. You can't.
That's not how it works. You did 3, so you're almost there.
The Declaration of Faith. You just have to say it.
Yeah.
That's just the saying.
The first.
Which when I found that out, I was like, that's kind of cheating, because surely you wouldn't be doing the other 4 if it wasn't for that one. Surely that's the assumed underlying.
That's like the first one.
I'm missing one. It's nothing to do. Is it wearing something? No, it's not wearing something.
No.
We're done going somewhere, wearing something.
Think of the stupid things that Sophia has to do in the book in order to do this on a daily basis.
Oh, we did the praying. 5 times a day. Yes. Yeah. We're just like, yes.
Quite impressed, actually. For a second,
is that all right?
For a second, I was worried I didn't know the 5 pillars.
In the book, Sophia has to keep finding places to pray in her office, and that was an interesting thing, because I think about my office and I'm like, I don't know, where would you? And I was reading the book being like, where would you?
In a corner.
I'm like, what if I did want to, if I wanted to come back, where would I go? When you were writing the book, was there just stuff like that you just kind of almost getting off your chest, or like, this hasn't been anywhere before?
Yeah, no, and it was, some, obviously, having worked in publishing and having needing prayer space. A lot of my friends were like, you're so lucky that you work in a place where people don't mind and are too polite to say to you, no, you're not allowed to do that. Whereas, a lot of my friends who are lawyers, they wouldn't be able to do the same.
Really?
Or wouldn't be able to kind of say to their boss, oh, by the way, can I nip out for 5 minutes and just quickly pray?
Yeah. So what do?
They pray in private. So they just kind of go do their
like they're nipping to the loo.
Yeah. like 15 minutes later. What is wrong with her?
Like IBS guys.
Yeah. Basically.
Or religion.
I think actually one of my friends does use that as an excuse. Funny you should say.
This is obviously like, well, historically we're a pagan country, let's be real. But like, well, the way we talk about it, we think we're like historically a Christian country,
yes,
which is kind of true if we look about 500 years, fine. But so I have an understanding because of primary school and secondary school, also because of my upbringing, about Christianity, like that base level thing. Do you, you probably know more about Christianity than I do about Islam? Maybe?
Yeah, well,
Would you
probably
say?
because it's an Abrahamic religion, and that's part of what we're taught as well. So even though we don't believe in the New Testament, we believe in the Old Testament, but also because the Bible has been changed over time, we believe that the Christian understanding of the Bible is
skewed.
Yeah, I was going to say incorrect, but I prefer skewed.
It's like, oh
yeah. So actually, we know more about Christianity because we believe in the prophets, we believe in Moses, we believe in Jesus, and it's so by default we end up.
So do you think there's like a bit of a discrepancy, there's a bit of an imbalance there, where my basic understanding of Islam isn't in line with Islamic basic understanding of Christianity? Yeah, and it is something that. Do you know what I mean? Or do you go, oh, well, fair enough, it's a Christian country, historically you are just going to know more?
Well, of course you are. And of course, it's just one of those, again, it's one of those things that you wouldn't expect someone to know more about Islam than they do about Christianity.
But beyond GCSE, are we expecting too little from ourselves? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, it's understandable, but is it great?
I think in today's climate, I think people should take it upon themselves to learn more about Islam, only because of the negative portrayal there is in the media. So it's that rebalancing. Exactly.
If it wasn't talked about at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have an opinion about Islam, then make sure that you research it. Yeah. Make sure that it's founded in knowledge. Rather than casting aspersions. So it would be nice if people feel really strongly about the Islamic faith, and according to the comments section of most videos and articles,
there's some feelings out there.
It seems they do. Then please go out and educate yourselves, or ask a Muslim. Yeah. It forces us also to be more informed. Yeah. I know that it's forced me to learn more about the religion that I practice. So in many ways, I think it's kind of a win-win, because when people ask you questions, you don't want to come across like an ignorant.
Yeah, you just like, can't tell you that. That's the next Muslim you pass.
I wear a hijab, but actually I know very little about the religion that I supposedly practice. So it's good.
It works both ways.
It does,
informing each other. So with the hijab, it's obviously a very visual way of showing what you believe.
Especially when it's red.
Have you? Just went all the way with the colour as well.
Why not?
When did you start wearing a hijab? Or is that kind of like me if you're gay, asking you for your coming out story as soon as I meet you?
No,
it's like, when did you start?
It's a good analogy though. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's about 10 years ago.
So what tipped the balance?
I know. Actually, funnily, it was a trip to New York.
Okay.
And I was staying with my cousin for a couple of months there, and it was just part of the spiritual progress that I was feeling, I guess.
Okay,
it was
so
something
like
very
natural...
And also, I'm one of those people who kind of, when they make a decision, it just kind of happens overnight, and then I wake up, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
This is the plan now.
Today I'm going to wear a hijab.
Yeah, new plan.
Today I'm going to, I don't know, go gorilla trekkings, and then I do it. Yeah.
Do you ever regret it?
No.
No.
Not one bit.
Does
my family does.
Okay, so your family don't?
No, my mum and my sister don't.
Really and it's that kind of
shocking.
It's just like diversity. It's almost like it's our own decision or something, and we're all individuals.
Crazy. I know.
Do you know anybody who has ever decided not to again? Do
yes,
people reverse, or is it like a kind of?
I've got a few friends actually who used to wear hijab and no longer do.
Is that because of external pressures, or?
No, just because they felt like it was something they didn't want to do anymore. And that's not to say they're any less spiritual than me. Of course, it's a choice, indicated by the fact that my mum, my sister, don't wear a hijab. Yeah. Whether it's compulsory, there's a contention there. There's a minority of scholars who believe that hijab actually, this kind of hijab, isn't necessary. Okay. And there are scholars who believe that it is compulsory. So it really depends on which school of thought you go down and what kind of research you do into it, which manifests in you wearing it or not wearing it. So if a woman does or doesn't, it's completely like anything, whether she drinks, whether she prays.
Yeah, it's whether she follows Islam.
Whether she follows Islam.
Yeah.
It's all about choice, really. There's no, you know, the famous quote in the Quran that's used, there's no compulsion in religion, and I think that's the key phrase. And the reasons behind why you do something, the intention with which you do something is far more important than the actual doing of it.
Yeah.
Intention's a very big thing in Islam. If you're intending to wear a hijab just to please your family members, maybe, then
that's kind of worse than
wearing. Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know what's worse or not. Who am I to judge? But you know,
but it's
the
not
intention
the
behind which you do something is kind of integral to whatever it is you do.
Yeah.
So
Because another question was about masculinity with the hijab, and so do you wear it around, just if you were just with women who are also Islamic, would you take it off?
Yes. So I would take, and non-Muslim women as well. So it's just men who you aren't related to. So you can take it off in front of your dad and your brother and your uncles. Like, say if we lived in a matriarchy,
right,
and there were only women,
if there were only women on the planet, then you probably wouldn't wear one, right? No, but then obviously the Quran wouldn't exist. But it was like, without all of that, wouldn't be any people.
Long term, but short term,
religion probably wouldn't be. Anyway, it's sci-fi questions, but so in some ways, you wearing hijab is dependent on men being around. Like it's part of that.
Which is always
yin and yang,
it's always slightly uncomfortable because it's kind of, I mean, I find it slightly uncomfortable sometimes because it's like, oh yeah, if I rip off my hijab, like all these men are going to fall in love with me. That's the kind of subtext, and that's not really what it is. It's hijab is about the meaning of hijab is obviously to veil, and that meaning is also multifaceted. So it's not just about the physical veiling; it's about the emotional veiling as well, the way you speak to people, the way you interact with people.
This person says, once a Muslim guy said that women wearing the hijab is a sign of respect, so that men won't look at them but will actually get to know them only from their ideas and thoughts. Do you have a different reaction from men?
I think it's a valid point. I think that with the hijab there's a certain respect that ends up coming from the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get it as well. Sometimes you're like, I don't care about your hijab.
Like, because we get
There's still some filthy men out there, let's be honest, hijab or no hijab. There's a danger in that philosophy because actually you should respect someone whether they're wearing a hijab so it's not, or whether
you're not trying to protect yourself from a system that actually shouldn't exist in the first place.
Exactly. So it's really, that's actually a very dangerous school of thought, I would say, and to not have that at all would probably be more beneficial to women as a whole.
Just like, could we just respect all women?
That would be quite nice.
I have a question that's occurring to me as I'm speaking. Do you know anybody who's transgender and Muslim? And would they wear
I don't know anyone personally, but of course there are. Of course there are gay people who are Muslim. There are gay women who wear hijab and who are practicing, and there are gay men who are practicing. There are gay men and women who aren't practicing. You know,
and I suppose same applies. It's like your choice, your intention,
and you know, whatever your personal beliefs are, there is no place for prejudice or homophobia in any whether it's in Islam or not in Islam. There's no place for it because. And actually, I go to these Islamic classes every Friday or Monday, and they're very enlightening. Fill me with joy.
I want to come.
I often think I wish it was open. Like I wish non-Muslims knew more about it.
Things like that. Like whereas like both. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Although the scholars there are like, careful, you know, like you do know that we're being followed by the MI5, don't you? But I don't know if they're joking or not.
You're just like, are we really
kind of one of those things where you're on the cusp. You're like, are you joking or are you serious? Because actually, it's not beyond the reach of.
It's not.
So and someone actually asked this question. You know, what do you think about gay people? And he said there's no place for homophobia in Islam. Whether you believe in the act of being gay. We know that there are kind of stringent rules in all Abrahamic religions when it comes to homosexuality. He's like, but hating someone for their sexual orientation, it's just not. He was just like, stop. Please.
So I just watched the Honor Diaries on Netflix.
Oh God.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I know. So I'm one of those people who can't quite bring themselves to watch that kind of stuff because it's quite depressing.
It is, well, exactly. It's like, you don't owe me to have watched it so I can talk to you about it.
I love the way that you just expected me to have seen it.
God, jeez. It's like gay people that haven't watched the L Word. I'm like, guys, how is this related to you? Anyway, but it's a roundtable discussion with bits of documentary in it, with lots of Muslim women, and they talk about the concept of honour. Obviously, when I first started associating the word honour with anything that wasn't just basic stuff, I associated with the word honour killing, and that is the worst association ever. Basically, I realised to make with the word honour. Yeah. What can you define honour for you? And do you think the word honour plays a part in how you practice?
Well, I think any human being should try and be honourable, whether you're Muslim or not Muslim. And the term for me, honour is just another version of respect. Yeah, unfortunately, there are people who think that honour is to do with duty. Honour isn't necessarily duty. Honour, I think, for me, is respect. In this documentary, they're talking a lot about people associating the word honour with a whole family and a whole group of people. So when you act, you don't just act as an individual, you act as part of a family, and there's an implication of honour points. You lost some points there. Your jeans are far too tight when you left the house this morning.
So I suppose it's a kind of, I think we've lost that in secular society and kind of in Christian society, of that idea of operating as a group
and a community.
Because also I think that we're kind of very fragmented to the point where I'm like, why don't we have any community centres anymore? Where's my local pub? I don't know. It's all Wetherspoons.
Why don't we know our neighbours?
Yeah, why don't? And it's that thing of people being very oh well, religion was when everyone hung around together. And there's this concept of honour, and then you're all connected to everybody, and it was really rubbish. When I think about the word honour, I think about collective group. Do you think there's something good about that?
I think there's something wonderful about that. I mean, imagine if you were an island and you didn't have your close friends. Yeah. Imagine, I think the sense of community is just a wonderful thing. Yeah. I read an article a while ago in The Guardian about this tiny village in Sardinia, maybe, where all the people live to 100 or over, because they have such a close-knit community and they're all really happy. It was,
How do they do that? It's just as soon as you sniffle, they're here's a tissue.
Happy village where the younger generation visits the older generation, and they all have lunch together, and they all know what's going on. If someone's ill, then the community rushes to kind of help them. And I think
I want to go. Can we go?
I know, right?
What's the postcode? Give me that. They probably don't have a postcode today.
They're off the map. They're we don't want people to infiltrate this.
Sounds like the beach.
One of the key sayings in Islam, I mean, there are a lot, but one of them is, you shouldn't, I'm paraphrasing hugely, by the way. Sorry, Muslims out there who know
this whole video is a paraphrase.
FYI. Yes, exactly. You shouldn't sleep if your neighbour is sleeping hungry. So there's this knock-on effect, isn't there? If you're looking after your neighbour, or if they're ill, or if they're hungry, and you're looking after them, and then they're looking after their neighbour, and then they're looking after... Essentially,
what's going to be the problem?
Yeah, no one will have a problem. So it actually starts... Charity begins at home, obviously, and with making sure that your neighbours are okay. Such a simple concept. And actually, if we all implemented it, then we'd all be really happy, basically.
I think we'll start using the word honour for that now. That's gonna be. We don't talk about honour killing. I'm like, we'll just call it a killing.
Honourable neighbours.
And then,
which also sounds like it should be a BBC One documentary.
That sounds like an amazing. It sounds like a new Australian drama I want to be in on. It's honourable neighbours.
Full of Muslims.
So with this concept of honour and being part of a collective group of people, do you ever feel like you're having to answer or act for people that you shouldn't have to? Yeah. Or do you ever feel like you're a symbol rather than a person?
Yeah.
Oh
and
God. How does that
beginning
stop?
Again. Yeah. There's a bomb going off. People want to know my opinion. Yeah. M&S are selling burkinis. People want to know my opinion. I just want to write. Yeah. That's what I want to do. Yeah. But no, I mean, in some ways, if you choose to wear a hijab and be very open about your practice, then it's going to invite questions, and you'd rather that it does invite questions than not. But when you're tarred with the same brush as someone who's ended up bombing an airport, that's quite...
and you're going to have to step in because
quite
that's
annoying.
You can't do that.
That's really, really awful. And actually, what's good about it, though, on the flip side, it forces us within the community to think about ways to tackle it. because it is an issue.
Yeah.
And it needs to be rectified.
Yeah.
How do you do that? What do you do?
Yeah.
You know, maybe you write articles, you become a journalist, maybe you write books.
Yeah.
You know? So these are kind of small but significant ways in which you can put forth your own narrative, and hope that people pay heed.
Yeah, and like hear that as well as, you know, like
all the
you
other
can't,
stuff.
yeah, you can't just silence
It's just,
them
yeah,
completely.
I mean, the media is just a lot louder.
Well, it's like, it's just such a hard question, you know, because like when I read more about Syria and stuff, I'm like, I know that I have less of an understanding of it because I don't understand Islam as well. Do you know what I mean? I know that, so it's like, that's a key way of understanding that issue, but it's not your problem. Do you know?
Yeah,
it's like if people started calling me out on the British Empire, can you imagine what would I say? I'd be like, that slavery thing was quite bad.
Yeah, that was
really
no.
Bad. Actually, Syria is probably our fault. Actually, like that's you know. So I don't know. It's
it does kind of force you to be more politically savvy, though, doesn't it? So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, ask people to call me out on the British Empire, then I'd be so much more knowledgeable.
Apparently, you know, ignorance isn't bliss.
Oh no,
not when you're Muslim anyway.
Obviously, it's different with each family. Sophia Khan is allowed to date, but there are like certain expectations.
Yeah, I don't think she's allowed to date so much as she just does.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, that's just Sophia. She's doing that quirky thing. Where she's
doing what she wants to do.
She's an eccentric.
Crazy girl.
Are there any like rules around teen dating? Is there a point where it's
don't do it?
No,
don't kiss.
There's not a whole rule book.
Yeah, no.
So that's not.
No, I mean, dating is a taboo subject because you're not meant to do it. In the sense of today's understanding of what dating involves. Yeah. Dating involves physical interaction, you know, which is prohibited in Islam. Yeah. So, and I know there was a question about rules about sex.
Yeah.
You can have it, but within wedlock, people, as a caveat. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Anyway.
Go for it.
How are we doing on integration? Like in general, would you say?
Crikey.
I don't know, because I don't think it's that great. Like to be honest, I've got quite a few Sikh friends actually, but I don't think I have any Muslim friends. How would you go, like, you know, should people, is it an ignorant thing to go out and be like, oh, I should make some Muslim friends? Do you know what I mean?
It's like
do you know what I mean? It's like integration is this thing.
I don't have any black friends. I should go out and get some black friends. It's a bit, it's, you know, it's the same kind of concept.
Because that's almost a little bit like...
contrived.
Yeah, it's contrived and it's kind of almost poetry. It's like, I'm collecting diverse friends.
Exactly.
It's not like, you're not casting a TV programme about the world and just having a friendship group. And you don't want to be like, oh, I don't have any Muslim friends, come in. You know, you're like, oh, sorry, I've already got loads of white middle class rich friends, so like
I don't have room for anymore.
No spots for you. Yeah. You don't want to do that, but at the same time, it's not okay just to be like, oh, integration will happen eventually. Do you know what I mean? It's not to be like, oh yeah, we'll all, you know, because there are pockets like London is one of the most diverse places I've ever lived, but I'm still like, there are pockets. You go into coffee shops and you're like, there are like, do you know what I mean? It's patchwork. It's not like one colour. It's like how, you know, is it okay to be like, how do I make more Muslim friends? Or is that like a weird...
Let me get out a list for you.
Like, I've got some numbers.
I've got some numbers. Like a few people who are looking for new friends, actually. It's an interesting question because on one hand, you don't want to be, collecting friends just based on wanting to be an interesting and diverse person. But if you give it an analogy and the way the workplace works and the way the media works and the whole concept of diversity, then I guess if we're positively discriminating in the media,
and making
sure that we're using positive discrimination within the workplace, then in a lot of ways extending that into your personal life kind of makes sense. I think that there's a danger of just trying to be really kind of cool and integrated. I mean, again, it comes down to intention, doesn't it? What is it?
It's like that.
Do you genuinely want to know about this person's life, and do you genuinely feel that
would
you're
you be
kind of
there
lacking?
For them
you're kind of lacking in your knowledge of people. And do you want to do this to broaden your own kind of horizons, or are you just doing it to just look
to like collect,
just to have a bit of fun and collect?
Yeah.
So it really depends on what your viewpoint is, and whether you are genuinely kind of interested in knowing more about different parts of.
Yeah. Do you feel like your friendships with Muslims are different from your friendships with other people? Or is that really hard? Because every friendship is different.
Every friendship is different.
Because with my friends, just like with my friends who come from a Christian background, there's just certain stuff that I can say about my family that they won't be like, oh yeah, well, your family are like Christians, so they would say that. Do you know what I mean? Like they understand that it comes from a place of good intention. It's just a different culture.
I think my non-Muslim friends, because they know me so well and they know of my religion quite reasonably well and are so respectful of it. I could probably have very similar conversations, but the thing with my Muslim friends is, and I actually had this conversation with my colleague, he's an atheist, and so we're always like having these kind of religious conversations. Hey, Alex, let's get a cup of coffee, let's talk
God
about...
God is dead! Like, shut up!
What do you mean? Blasphemy! But, you know, and he was talking about morality and the importance of maintaining that without the idea of religion, because it can prevent you as a person from seeking justice in this world, which is a very valid point. And I was disagreeing with him on some points, and you know, we agreed to disagree when I said that your point of reference is different to mine, because as a Muslim or as a person who believes in the afterlife, you're not just thinking about what you're doing in this world. Your time frame is basically infinite. Your time frame is basically 60 to 80 years, you know. So the way you choose to live is going to be very different to the way I choose to live, because I'm answerable for my actions to a higher being. Crazy girl that I am. I won't enter into physical relations in relationships, and a lot of non-Muslims might be like, what? Why are you doing that to yourself voluntarily? You're mad. And in today's day and age, you know, I can see that, you know, I can see why people think we're basically a little bit mental. But at the same time, your belief is your belief, my belief is my belief. And I think that I will be answerable for certain things. And that's why I'm going to stop myself from doing certain things which might have a negative impact on my life.
And I think as well, people ask those questions because we're always taught to think that everybody wants the same things out of life. So it's like, why are you doing this and why are you doing this? And it's like, because I don't want those things. And it's like, that's not, and it's that baseline. It's like, I already thought about the questions before this question. So And it's more like asking.
You always expect people to be on the same kind of wavelength as you, and everyone, even like if I'm speaking to another Muslim, they might have a completely different perspective to certain things than I do.
Are we good? Is there anything like positively we can be like, can we have more of these conversations? Can you stop having these kind of conversations? Is there anything? That's a really general question.
It's quite a general question, but in some ways I know what you mean. If everyone could stop thinking that Muslim women are oppressed, then that would be great. I mean, as a baseline feature, if everyone could, you know, understand that we all have opinions. And that women are allowed to have opinions, and that we are equal to men. That would be really, really wonderful. Thank you.
Like bulletin.
We
just send that like CC in the world,
please, especially the French women's rights minister. That would be great.
She's not.
No. She just, you know.
Well, because it's with the gender and feminism thing, it's like women and men are, you like, would you say you believe they're different but equal?
Yes,
like
that's exactly it. Different but equal.
Different folks, different strokes.
And you have, I mean, I won't go into like an Islamic debate about this, but again, these talks that I go to on a weekly basis, they're really wonderful. But you know, so many Muslims, in fact, have forgotten about the base teachings of our Prophet. And if we all led his type of life, I do think that Muslims would be a lot less highly strong about things.
Because like, can we just go back to the original?
Can we just take it back a few steps?
But then I have sometimes this debate with like preachers on the street, 'cause I don't see a lot of like Muslim preachers, you know, people who are like, 'cause like with Christians,
you're not meant.
That's not
the concept of missionaries and preaching is actually not allowed, and this is just something I learned actually a couple of weeks ago.
That's really interesting.
Bringing my knowledge in there. And also
fresh Muslim news, guys.
I could be paraphrasing my sheikh to the point of just changing what he said. I don't know.
We'll go with what we've got.
But the idea of going out and changing, like forcing people to convert, is actually prohibited. The idea in Islam of not getting someone to convert, God. The idea of Islam is you invite people to Islam. You don't say, this is right, you're all going to go to hell. Yeah. That conversation of infidels is just one that no one should have without looking at the literature, because it's, I mean, I'm often surprised at the ignorance within the cultural community, Muslim culture, in which people are so, people are ready to call others like non-believers, and that kind of language. It's just, it's scary. It's scary, and it's awful, and it's wrong. Yeah. You are actually committing a sin. You are actually committing like, this is a sin. Ironically, you think that you're preaching good, but actually what you're doing is bad. My sheikh, who obviously I quite clearly am in love with.
What's a sheikh?
A sheikh. Oh, sheikh is basically
not like butter.
No, like shea butter. No, sheikh. Close. As in, I mean, they call Arab sheikhs who are rich, but these but these sheikhs are guys who have studied Islam for decades and are like scholars. Okay. They know the Quran by heart.
And are they connected to a mosque, or are they?
Often they are, but sometimes not. Okay. Not always. I mean, I don't know.
It's not like you have like, because like, so we have like have a minister for our postcode.
You will have like a sheikh for your mosque.
Oh, okay.
Presumably, but then there are freelance sheikhs, let's call them, floating, basically, just offering advice wherever they go. Yeah. God, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, he made a very interesting point when it comes to kind of discussion about religion and talking about your religion, and when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. You just don't pull someone off the street and start saying, actually what you're doing is really wrong and you shouldn't be wearing that. And he's like, this is not appropriate behavior, people. And he's made a very valid point that actually Islam began in a mountain, in solitude and in isolation. So he said it's all about you first and how you act and how your thoughts develop and how your spirituality develops. He goes like, once you've attained a percentage of that, then maybe think about it, but even then you have to be really careful. So it's a very interesting debate to have, about the concept of kind of conversion and telling people about the religion and whatnot. But I mean, there are so many. Once the more you learn about the religion, the more you actually understand your initial vision of it was so skewed and also so wrong. Yeah.
So Sophia Khan Is Not Obliged, if you haven't heard, is out now and it's amazing. It's one of my favourite books. It's a very funny book.
Thank
you. Not that sounds like a shocking. I'm just like, it was also funny, but like that's what I took away from it. Really, is when I tell people, I'm like, it's just a hilarious book. Don't even worry about the rest of it. Just like, it's just funny. That's why you need it. And did you like? There's. I think people never like associate Islam and humour. I think that's really sad.
I don't know why.
I was like, oh god.
Islam, they just think of stoning.
Yeah,
they never think of funny.
But that's what I like. And did you set out purposely to write a funny book because of that, or did you just fancy to write a funny book anyway?
I didn't set out to write a funny book. It's one of those things where when I got kind of Sophia's voice, it just turned out that she was funny. Yeah. Whether that was intentional or whether that was unintentional, it was just her character and her voice. And once I started writing her and what happens to her, I guess it just came.
You were like, P.S. She's Muslim.
Yeah.
Do you think that some of the coverage around the book has been too much about the Muslim part of it and not much about how it's been fun? Do you think people want to talk about focus on the Islamic perspective?
I'm totally a realist, and I think that was bound to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe this is published in 20 years.
Maybe one day people will talk to me about the process of being a writer and not the process of being a Muslim. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, then after that, they might just start asking you about the process of being a woman writer.
Yeah, exactly.
If it wasn't that, it'd be something else.
Precisely. So, it was completely to be expected. And but you know what? In many ways, I'm glad, because it just hopefully normalises the idea of a woman who lives in London and who practices her faith, and she's not this weird freak of nature. And I think that's the main thing, and I'm I'm perfectly happy to be asked about the Muslim aspect of it because
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's bound
And
to
that's
happen.
really cool to be
And
like,
also,
yeah, it's gonna-
why would I, you know, why would
Yeah.
why would I call something a Muslim Bridget Jones and then, you know,
Then
get
be like,
annoyed with
no, we
people?
don't, yeah,
Yeah,
use the
you
M word.
can't talk about being Muslim. You
Yeah,
know, it's
you've got to take
ridiculous.
the-
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for
No, thank
humouring
you.
us. Buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. I'm just like literally just like, buy the book. It's my whole life spending that. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay.
Done.
Hurrah.
I'm like, woo.